All right, so let us begin our exploration of today's call with taking a moment to just center and to allow ourselves the opportunity to fully arrive. So whatever that looks like for you right now, if it's first thing in the morning, for those of you who are joining from Australia, maybe that's doing a big stretch and some big cleansing breaths. For those of you who are in Europe and it's evening time and you've had a full day, maybe it's dropping into a silent moment with your hands on your body and just doing some cleansing breaths. And for those of you who are here with me in the daytime in the Western Hemisphere, possibly it's either or. Whatever you choose right now, just be with your breath and just take a couple of cleansing breaths, however that is for you. Either it's the big energizing breath or the calm and soothing breath. We're just taking this moment to arrive, to tune in with our body and what our body needs in order for our soul to come through and show up fully, for our presence to be here, for us all to receive this transmission and to be present and engaged. Maybe we all just do a collective sigh, just feel that vibration in our heart space. So I am very excited to share with you all today's training, and we are in our first training for March's theme, which is non-ordinary states of consciousness of the metaphysical and the spiritual nature. And as you've seen in a lot of the posts, there are many different forms of non-ordinary states of consciousness. And what we're really specifically focusing in on are the ones of a mystical, of a spiritual nature. And the question that I always sit with is, why is it that the mystical, the supreme, the divine aspects of ourselves are what we consider non-ordinary, right? What is ordinary, right? Ordinary is that which is regular. It's that which is consistently being experienced. So why is it that our mystical, our divine nature is not what we are consistently experiencing here, right? And this is something to really contemplate internally. And in order for us to really activate what this call is about, we're going to be going into a little bit of the universal story of how we ended up here in a black hole matrix, how we ended up here in a world where our spiritual, divine consciousness is non-ordinary, and how we can ultimately start to shift that. And we are going to do a technique today that is a bioregenesis technique that will assist us all in activating and connecting with our 12th Maharata strain of DNA. So we are going to be practicing and using a really advanced technique. So bear with me. I'm going to be sharing images to help you to see the geometric, the mathematical. We're going to be going into some information that might feel dense at certain moments. I'll do my best to translate it in ways that are very effortless for us all to understand. And if at any moment you have any questions, you can just type them into the comments. If I get into a flow space, I might not answer the question right in that moment. That said, just type it into the chat or go into the participants function underneath the 3 little dots and just raise your hand so that I know you have a question you want to ask. So let us begin, and I will be sharing my screen quite a bit, and I'll be doing my best to explain it. And I also have a tremendous amount of notes to keep myself laser tuned in, because there's so much that we could talk about, and we have a limitation of our time together today. So I have notes. If you see me looking over here, it's me making sure that I don't run off on too far of a tangent, because I can totally geek out about the universal story. With that being said, we are in this world of delusion, right? We're in this duality, we're in this experience where we feel like we're limited in some way, and we are experiencing a world where our spiritual nature is not ordinary, where our mystical experience is not ordinary. So if we go back to the beginning of time, the beginning of all of existence, we go back to the beginning of our individual creations from the one, the source God code, right? In the beginning, we're all cut from the same cloth, so to say, right? That statement, that means we're all coming from the same fabric, we're all coming from the same place, we're all one. And that original cloth that we're cut from is our Christos, it's our divine blueprints. And essentially, it's a mathematical, geometrical instruction manual that is comprised of symbols and codes and numbers and geometry that essentially are the templates for light and sound that hold the mathematical equations for all of existence and for what is possible for each manifestation. So essentially, our divine blueprint is our intention. It is the intention that we held within the unified fields for our manifestation. And that intention essentially gets then downstepped into mathematics, into geometry, into symbols, which is why we say, you know, mathematics and math is the language of the universe. And that's because if we reverse engineer mathematics, we'll go all the way back to our divine blueprint. And I'm currently working through a lot of throat clearing through the spring equinox portal, so I'm going to be super hydrating myself. I'm feeling like I'm finally on the other side of whatever was clearing. Okay, so we're not going to dial into like super advanced math. I don't want to bore us all here or lose our interest. I want it to be really talked about in a way that we can all resonate with and understand. So if we're downstepping this mathematics, what essentially ends up happening is we create symbols, and we are all symbols, right? Each and every one of us is a symbol. When we see each other, we don't actually see the whole truth. What we're seeing is based on our conditions, our perspectives, our beliefs, our expectations. So what we're seeing is actually a symbol that is on a spectrum of light. And that where you fall, where you see each other on that spectrum is based on our own individual conditions. That is our perspective, right? So we're seeing each other as symbols. And you can think of that as, say you have a role model, right? That person is a symbol for something you would like to become in your life, right? Maybe you possibly have people that you really don't want to become like, and those people are symbols for ways that you want to be different in the world, right? So we all serve as symbols representing something through our form, right? So we're in symbol form down here when we're in manifestation. And if we reverse engineered all of this, we would just break it down and it would be math, be geometry, be light and sound codes. Cool? So essentially, when we split off from that cloth and we start to go on our individual experiences, cut from this divine blueprint that holds our intention for why we're going and having this journey of what we call individuality. And when we have that intention, we create a template. We create what's called a shield. And a shield is essentially a scalar wave pattern. So we're talking about energy waves. So it's an energy wave pattern that holds the templates for your experience in this life and in every life that you've ever been in. And we're going to be in our activation that we do today, we're going to be going into our personal shields. So I just wanted to give you that piece of information. When you hear the word shield in our activation, it's literally like an energy wave that you're tapping into, and that shield holds the entire blueprint for your intention. And you, as Helga or Manda or Natalia, who's here with me live, and everyone else who will watch this later, that's just one aspect of your multidimensional nature, right? So your shield holds all of your lifetimes. It holds all of your experiences and all of the original intention for every single different lifetime that you are experiencing on this dimension and on other dimensions as well. So if we're all cut from the same cloth, and we all originally, when we split from source, we come from this divine blueprint, what the heck has happened so that we're now living in this world where we are experiencing limitation, where scarcity and fear is all that's being talked about, where our spiritual essence, our divine blueprint, is not ordinary for people to be in touch with? So this is where we start to get into what we call the fall, right? And the fall is essentially, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk about what the fall is in a second. That said, what ended up happening was there were race lines, not only on this planet, beyond this planetary system, that began to tamper with the symbols. They began to tamper with the mathematics and with the geometry that resulted in a reversal of the energy flows. That essentially anytime there's an alteration to the mathematical code, to the geometry, it alters the Christ code. And what these fallen angelic races realized was that they could alter people so much from the Christ code that they would actually, when you alter yourself from the Christ code, you cut off your connection with God's source, infinite energy. So when we are in alignment with our divine blueprint, we have infinite energy, infinite resources available to us, an infinite energy supply. But the moment that we tamper with that, we cut off that source to that infinite energy supply. And what these fallen angelics realized was that they had to now find a way to essentially get energy, because their energy supply was now depleting, because they were cut off from God's source, infinite energy. And this is how a black hole matrix gets created, where a black hole matrix needs to suck energy from other systems in order to gain energy to live. And at the same time, it's also progressively self-consuming that energy and ultimately has a finite supply. And we'll talk about how that finite supply kind of happens. There is always an end point. There is it's like an emergency brake that God's source creator put into the template code, that if at any point we fall too far away from our Christic codes, that there is like an emergency button that gets pressed so that destruction doesn't go to a certain point. And there is a part in our conversation today where we'll talk about what that looks like. So essentially, these black hole matrix systems were created because these fallen angelics wanted to essentially rival the creator. They wanted to become the creators. They wanted to own the universe in a certain way. What we're talking about in these black hole matrices, we can talk about them as monadic reversals. The Metatronic anti-Christic code is also called. It's been called the demon seed. So if you've ever heard of any of these terms before, it's all talking about these fallen angelic races. And we'll talk about how Earth kind of fits into this and how we all fit into this as well. So when this happens, when a template is reversed and the structure, and I'll show you images of the structure shortly, is brought off axis, the being is unable to fulfill the primal purpose, to maintain the primal condition that is within your divine blueprint, right? So your divine blueprint is the intention. So when this code gets off axis, you're no longer able to fill that primal purpose, the primal intention. And this is what the fall is. It's when you're no longer able to fulfill your primal purpose. So when a manifest being, so we're all manifest beings, when we use the gift of free will within the original divine templates, we reach the state of atonement, at one-ment, right? At one with God's source. And we can know and embody that energy and live in an infinite supply. We literally will have no death date on our bodies. Our bodies will be complete when we're complete with them because we'll have a limited supply. So the very fact that our bodies die is essentially the example and the experience of us being in a black hole system. So when the opposite of free will choice is made, so when beings and fallen races go and manipulate people and take away their free will, the reversal of flow happens, and the structure continues to alter the Christ codes. And it will manifest in the individual experience as progressively increasing limitation. So it's experiencing more and more limitation, a limited supply of energy, a limited supply of consciousness, and a growing of separation from source and a growing of separation from all beings. So within that statement of what we just said, we can see how this is playing out in our time matrix band. Whereas there is an agenda through media to essentially, a part of free will is that if you see it and you agree with it and you watch it, you give it your energy, that means you're giving it the free will. So it's a way of actually navigating around the laws of free will, which is why a lot of media will blatantly, in plain sight, show people through movies and television and a lot of the what are they called? Award ceremonies that are very publicly broadcasted. They will show on stage, in person, in real time, what is happening. And people think that this is it's just a show, it's just an act. And then watching is actually giving their free will to that very thing continuing to happen to them. So that is one way that our free will is continuously being violated here. And we can see that now through our timeline getting to this point where we're running out of fuel, we're running out of money, we're running out of resources. This is all the exemplification of us being disconnected from source. The consciousness level of this planet, of the humans on this planet, is so low, right? 10% of our consciousness is what the majority of people have available to them, which is a very small percentage. This all just shows us that we've been on this progressive track of disconnection. So as we continue to essentially diminish the flow of source energy, we are all here now. Like, why, you might be asking yourself, why the fuck am I here? I've asked myself this so many times. Like, why would I choose to come into this, right? If there's a part of me that has chosen this, and we'll talk a bit about that. Some of us were sent on rescue missions and literally got trapped here. And some of us came in voluntarily and are here to, we are here to understand and to explore what choosing the original divine intention leads to. So we're actually here to experience choosing the divine blueprint, choosing the Christ code. So if we were in another time matrix where we weren't in a black hole system, we would never actually get to experience what choosing the divine blueprint meant, because we would be living in it. So we wouldn't have anything to show us what not being in alignment with the divine blueprint was like, right? So when we talk about us being here, we have a choice. We have a choice to go into the timelines of more suffering, or we have a choice right now to choose our divine blueprint And to do this deeper inner work, and all of you who are here in this group, whether you're with me now live or watching in the future, you've already made that choice. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to receive this information, right? You wouldn't have resonated with it in some way, or some part of you would have stopped yourself from showing up. So if you ever worry about if am I making the right choices, just let it go, because you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't even be able to receive this information. It would be blocked from your field completely. So we're all here to experience choosing the divine blueprint and witnessing it, experiencing how choosing the divine blueprint leads us to increasing joy, increasing experiences of oneness, and ever lessening limitation. So there are certain attitudes and personal responsibilities of mastery that are really crucial in being able to understand what kind of choices lead to what kind of outcomes, and essentially provide like an outline for the choices that will lead us towards oneness, right? The law of one. And we'll be covering a lot of those in depth in another live session in the next month, because the next month's topic is all going to be about mastery and ascension. So we will go through and have a whole call on those, what did I call it? My brain is just shut down for a moment. Attitudes and responsibilities. There we go. So what has essentially happened here is we've gone through, and this reversal that has taken place in this black hole matrix has impacted our geometrical and mathematical code. It has essentially impacted what we know it as our light body, or our Merkaba. And for those of you who have not gotten far enough into the practices yet on demand, you know, there's a whole week of practices on activating the Merkaba. With that being said, I am going to just share my screen with you here and pull up some images. Okay, let's get our Zoom on. So focusing at the center here, there's a lot of very small text on this, I know. Right at the center here, we have our Merkaba. So we have the six-pointed star, the triangular coming down and the triangular going up. So if you remember from those calls, we have the magnetic triangle that's coming up and the electrical triangle that's coming down, the feminine rising and the masculine descending. So a part of the reversal of the templates is you can actually go online and find people who are saying the masculine comes up, the electrical comes up, is the bottom triangle rising, and the feminine comes down. So there'll be actually people teaching the opposite. And they'll actually be showing you how to rotate the Merkaba in the opposite direction, which just shows us that there has been this reversal happening, which is why it's so important when people talk about Merkaba that you really tune in and read and see. And I've gone on several websites where I've seen, yes, the masculine is the bottom triangle coming up, it is the electrical. And right then and there, you know, this is the reversal, this is false information that's actually keeping people trapped, and their Merkabas locked into the time matrix that we're in, known as Dimension 3, right? So I'm going to show you another image here. This is our full light body. To just see how advanced it is in the geometry. And I will post these images in our page so that you have them. It can be very powerful to just sit with and meditate with your full body, light body imagery. So what has essentially happened is that damage comes to our Merkaba. And the damage comes to our, look at this. Oh, I think I have to zoom out before it'll let me change it. So down the center line of both of the triangles, there is, we call our staff. So our staff runs vertically, and then we have our rod that runs horizontally. And at the point in the center where they meet, we have what's called our azure points, the seed atom. So the damage that is being done is they actually block the source. So the source energy, remember, comes down through the electrical, the masculine, it's bringing through the source code, and then the feminine, the magnetic, is sending energy back out. So the Merkaba point that brings energy in from source is what has been stopped. It's been locked in place. And when it stops for long enough, when there's a critical point, it will actually start to rotate in the opposite direction, which is why a lot of these reversal teachings will actually teach you to rotate that Merkaba point in the opposite direction, because then it accelerates the black hole matrix agenda. There will come a certain point for people when that electrical channel will slow, it will start to rotate in the opposite direction, and then it will completely break. So the staff, what we call it, will completely break. And when it completely breaks, and don't worry, this does not happen to any of you here, because remember, you're all on the path of choosing the Christ code. I'm just sharing this piece with you because I find it very helpful to know that the God source has an emergency brake, right? For when things get so out of control that experiences of total destruction take place. So when the staff gets to that critical point, it will break, and then the magnetic energy that's coming up from the bottom triangle will get backed up, and it will actually overwhelm the Manu. So the Manu is the window at the center of the Merkaba that allows for our bodies to come through, our higher bodies, our monadic, our atmic, our buddhic, our sattvic, our causal, all of our bodies to come through. Our soul comes in through the Manu, which if you will like put yourself in the middle of that sacred geometry, that would be at the center, like a little window, right? So the Manu will eventually close, and it will be closed for permanently. It cannot be reopened once it's closed. And that means that source energy will never enter into that being's template again. At this point, when that window closes and there's no longer source energy to be able to come in, this manifest form just continues to drain all of its energy and drain all of its energy. And it will go out and create these black hole systems to then siphon energy off other stargates, other people, in order to be fueling its agenda. Well, at a certain point, the molecular compaction of the magnetic sphere being so powerful will actually implode and shatter the azure, which is the seed atom. And when it implodes, it will literally just shatter into space dust. And this being and everything that has ever been completely shatters into space dust. Its Merkaba completely dissolves, and its manifestation loses all of its memory of ever having existed, and it can never exist again. So at a certain point, that is the, push, halt, stop, break. God, source, creator, maintains the memory for eternity of that manifestation and everything that it created. So a lot of these fallen angelic races are moving towards that critical breaking point where they are draining their energy so much that it can implode, right? So if you're ever worried about, What are we going to do to like stop these, fallen races? We don't ever have to do anything, because so long as we all internally choose the divine template and realign our codes, we will shut them off from being able to take energy from us. And when their energy supply is shut off, they will go towards this implosion point where they literally will dissolve and no longer be able to manifest again. Which is why it's so important that we spread the messages of consciousness, of our divine blueprint, of atonement, of unity, and of the truth of our Merkaba, of our light body. So let's see. Just looking at my notes here. Okay. I want to share with you. So we talked about the rod and the staff. So I have another image to share with you, and I want to show you what the rod and staff end up creating. And this is very important for when we talk about ascension. So if you look at this image here, this column that has almost like an eye at the top and then a pillar, a column here, this is what we call our ascension pillar. It is what plugs us into universal stargates. In order for us to ascend beyond a time matrice, we ascend through our light body, moving through a stargate. So in order for us to ascend, which is the natural evolution of a being, our light body ascension pillar, I think it will even say that here, ascension chamber, right? This chamber here goes all the way down into the earth. Our Maharic shield, which is what we're going to activate today. And then it goes all the way up, and this would plug into a stargate. So that is what our rod is creating. So our rod and our staff. Now, even if we go into, I'm going to read from the Bible, actually, from Psalms 24. All of the teachings have originally come from the Gnostic teachings, and this information has been available to us. It's just been hidden in plain sight, and it's required proper translation. So I'm going to read this exactly as it was copied and pasted out of a recent Bible. Psalm 24, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. They're literally talking about the development of the Merkaba light body in the Bible. It's there. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overfloweth. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all of the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This Psalms is quite famous, and even taking from it, there is a tremendous amount of information in this one verse about the path of ascension. And we're really speaking about the journey that we take as souls of choosing to come down into the valley of the shadow of death, where death exists, where we appear to die, and we face evil here. We face fear. And through the rod and staff, this is our Merkaba, through our light body, we are able to navigate through this valley and return to the glory, return to what is called the house of the Lord, which is the source. Right? So it speaks to the absolute importance of our light body. Though if you don't know what rod and staff mean metaphysically, you might think that there's a guy and a shepherd in a valley leading you with a rod and staff. Which is why people can get very confused on this path as to what actually we're here to do. The secrets of ascension have always been here on this planet. They're written in all of the ancient texts. It's just the translation of these texts has been skewed in order to essentially fuel some agendas. So let's talk about how Earth ended up here, right? So we've got to go back about 550 million years through what is called the fall of Tara. So Tara is the D2, so dimension 2 version of Earth. Gaia is the D3. Aurora is D4. Araya is D5. So just as we have the evolutionary changing of names, as you all know, I'm now a Homna, which is a higher dimensional name of my D3 name, Jessica. Right? So we all have different names that consciousness is able to tap into. So Tara was the D2 version of Earth that went through a massive fall about 550 million years ago, when the morphogenetic field actually fell into D1. And this is what we know of as the fall of man, the original sin. It's when literally the consciousness of the beings that were on that planet was blown apart and was ripped from their soul matrices and was essentially trapped into a time matrix dimensional system. And during this time, Earth even tilted its axis. And as you know, Earth is off axis from the sun. We're going to talk a bit more about this off axis. Okay, so essentially, during the fall of Tara, it opened up Earth, as we call it, to be susceptible to the fallen race war that was going on. So during that time, some of the fallen races, primarily the Anunnaki and the Draconian, came into the Earth system and stole our Stargate. So the Earth is a very special place. It has multiple universal Stargates. And what the fallen races do is they go around and they try to take hold of Stargates, because that's where they siphon their energy from. And the more Stargates that they have control of, the more that they can lock people into certain time matrices where they can no longer go on their ascension journey. And that ascension journey eventually returns us back to source. So during the fall of Tara is when Earth became susceptible to this, for these fallen races to come in. And the quest for essentially universal dominion continued to ensue and continued to take place. And the methodology that was used is essentially the Anunnaki and the Draconians came into our Earth sphere and hybridized an 11-strain DNA template to ensure that people stayed locked into the third dimensional time matrix, so that the black hole matrix may feed off the energy. The more people that are here, the more energy they have to feed off of. The more souls that are here, the more energy that they have to feed off of. So removing the 12th strand successfully blocked the founder races from being able to come in and incarnate into their race line. So these fallen races were very successful in creating a self-contained fallen angelic dominion force in our time matrix, in the third dimension here. And it's not only happening on Earth. There's a lot more advanced history about how these same race lines have gone into other planetary systems like Lyra and Sirian. And I did upload a like 8-hour-long video story of this on our Facebook page from YouTube, for those of you who want more in-depth information about what's happening on our subsequent systems while this was taking place. So some humans currently on our planet have 9, 10, 11 strand fallen angelic DNA templates from this hybridization that's been taking place from the Anunnaki and the Draconian fallen angelics. That said, all humans, even if they have these fallen angelic DNA templates, can reverse and mutate their DNA template distortions and bring the dormant DNA template, which is our 12th strand angelic human potential, back online through activating the templates through self-generated DNA bioregenesis technologies, one of which we're going to do today here shortly. And so irregardless of if your template has been hybridized or compromised in any way, all beings can reactivate this 12th strand template. Fallen angelics have attempted to keep the guardian angelic nations out of Earth. So 500 and about 60 million years ago, after the fall of Tara happened, there was a rescue mission. And the founder races, so these are the original angelic races that did not go through any falls, they sent people here, possibly some of them are you in different life forms, or people of your oversoul family that came here on rescue missions. Well, what ended up happening was there was massive war that took place on this planet, like literally galactic war that took place on this planet, nothing like our human wars even could compare to. And the angelic humans were kicked off the Earth. The angelic humans essentially lost that war. And a lot of them went to Orpheus, which is a constellation within our Earth system. And in order to keep the guardian angelic nations out of Earth, they literally removed Orpheus constellation from our whole astrological system so that we wouldn't be able to even connect to the fact that we are angelic human souls. Which is why around 2012, when everyone started to go through their first wave of awakening, what constellation came into our awareness? Orpheus. So, and the Orpheus is the Orify. So it's one of the original founder races that did not go through any mutations. Okay, and I do see the questions that are there, and I'll get to them once I get through this little last piece of information. So the Earth essentially, a lot of us who came in on these rescue missions, because the fallen and the angelics actually lost that battle, a lot of people who came in on rescue missions got trapped here. They got locked into this reincarnation cycle on Earth, and they got blocked the passage of ascension because essentially the 12th Stargate was taken over by the fallen angelic races. And once the 12th Stargate is taken over on a planetary system, that blocks out any more angelics from being able to come in. Now, that is over. The 12th Stargate has been successfully going through it being released from having any control from the fallen angelic races. So we are going through this history knowing that we are in a very auspicious timeline now on the planet because of a massive point of critical awakening and of the work that a lot of people who have been coming in since then, because once your soul family comes in and gets trapped here, what ends up happening? More of your soul family starts to come on rescue missions to try to rescue, because we're all intertwined, right? We're all connected. And if a part of us is stuck in these black hole matrices, then the other part of us that's out of it is also being impacted by that. So through continual success in rescue missions, we have been able to free the 12th Stargate of Earth, and has put us on a very auspicious timeline. That being said, there is an agenda within the fallen angelics, because they know that they can get Earth humans to pledge allegiance to external figures of gods and their divine representatives, And they have been doing it since the Sumerian times with Father God Anu. And essentially, these fallen races, they know that their time here is coming to a close, and that they're getting to that critical breaking point where a lot of them are going to dissolve into stardust and their manifestations will be complete. And with that being said, the last hope that they have is that they'll be able to, through the end of time experience that's currently happening on the planet, they will come in as these fallen angelics will come in, and they'll be embodied as these external figures that many humans have been worshiping, and they'll think that these external figures are here to save them from the end of times, and people will actually follow them into another black hole system where they'll continue to be manipulated. This is the false New Age movement, the Ascended Masters, the Seraphim Archangels. These are all pieces of this agenda to get people to still give away their power to an external God figure. And I just speak that because it's so important for all of us to do this internal work so that we become our own source God creator. We reactivate and realign our light bodies so that we can continue on our journey of ascension, as that path, as Earth is becoming more in alignment with that path now, and we see that through the pole beginning to shift, which will bring the Earth back into axis alignment with our sun. So essentially, this intention by the fallen races is what is called the Grail Quest. And the Grail Quest is the journey to essentially control universal stargates, to shut down universal stargates 12 on the planet, which then blocks everyone from ever being able to return to source. And in order to do that, they need the Ark of the Covenants, which is a real gold box, as this is what allows, in order to even utilize Stargate 12, or Universal Stargate 12, you have to have the rod and the staff and the Ark of the Covenant gold box that allows you to even utilize the Universal Stargate 12. With that being said, this has all shifted in our time matrices, which is why there's now this agenda to get people to worship like religion, get people to worship this God over here, these saviors. And I have personally witnessed this a lot in the New Age community, where people will just be like, I can't wait for the ships to come and just save us. And I'm going to be really honest with you, don't get on any of those ships. Because the only one who can save you is you redeveloping the technology of your light body and you ascending through the stargates on your own. If you get on any of those ships, it's very well likely that you could be entering into another black hole matrix. So I want to show you the distortions that have happened in our light bodies, so that you have imagery of this. Let me just get those pictures up now. Oh, let me actually first show you the alignments. Here we are. So see how the point here is at the top and it comes straight down and across. So we have our rod and we have our staff, or our rod goes horizontal, our staff is vertical. You see multiple bodies. We are like a Russian stacking doll. There is multiple of us inside, right? So we have our human body, and then we have our larger bodies that continue to expand outward. And I'll send you these images so that you can really look at them. That said, for our purpose, we're really just wanting to see. So here is our light body when it's in alignment. Now we're going to see the mutation of our light body that's taken place. Okay, so the central axis point has been turned. and you can very much see it in these images, where this point here is now 15-degree counterclockwise. It makes people so that they're slightly off, because if the staff is off, it has to be in alignment in order for source code to come through, which is why our spiritual aspects of ourselves are non-ordinary. People bring them into alignment through psychedelic use, through deep, deep meditation, through getting their brainwaves in alignment. We'll talk about that in a moment. That said, we'll look at a couple others here. Again, you see that it can be tilted out of alignment either way. And then here, this last one, it really shows at a certain point, we just become so out of alignment with the axis that there is just this reversal. It just comes in and it keeps just looping, and it keeps us in. This essentially is keeping people into reincarnation cycles, because you're out of axis, you cannot ascend. Which is why this thing called karma exists, which is why we have reincarnation here, which are all actually not natural when we are on the ascension path. With that being said, we are going to do a technique today that's going to help us to bring our connection to our 12th strand DNA, the bioregenesis, and really support us all. Let me just make sure there's nothing else that I need to share with you all before we go into talking about the Maharic Shield. And let me just see here. There's a couple questions. One is, do I ever meet beings on this path? Absolutely. Lots of beings, both physical and non-physical, both benevolent and malefic. Do people act as stargates? Goosebumps of Lyra. And yes, there is a lot of deep history with Lyra. Lyra was essentially one of the first places that were compromised in our galaxy. So in the Andromedan galaxy, the Andromedan universe, Milky Way galaxy, Lyra was the first compromise, and it essentially set off this whole chain reaction throughout our Milky Way that allowed for this system to come in and essentially become like this black hole matrix that is not only in Earth. With that being said, stargates are points on the planet, and I can actually show you pictures of the points. We all have our own stargate technology within us that is our Merkaba. So our stargate allows us to move through other stargates. That said, do we act as stargates? No, we are stargates. That said, we must be utilizing our stargate technology, which is our Merkaba. It's our light fields. It's that massive geometric that I showed you, and then the simplified six-pointed star. So yes, we are stargates, and we also require stargates on a planetary field to move through those stargates and to go into other places in time, which is why in a lot of the Buddhic traditions and ancient Egyptian traditions, there's a very, very big focus and emphasis on the death part of our cycle, so that people, when they die, they make a proper Bardo passage. And that's all about their geometry being in alignment so that they can make it through a stargate and don't get trapped in the black hole matrix. That field that has been around the planet is actually being broken down right now because of the incredible work that we have all been doing to awaken our consciousness, to reactivate our light bodies, so on and so forth. So we are on a very auspicious timeline. You being here means that, you know, even you having access to this information means that you have chosen the path of source, you have chosen the path of reactivating your divine template, so you don't need to worry about any of that, right? What we all get to do now is to show up consistently, to do the practices that help us to bring our light body structure back into alignment. So the practice that we're going to be doing today is the Maharic Seal. And the Maharic Seal technique comes from the Law of One, which is the interconnection and interdependence of all dimensions of reality. This isn't going to come from any of the Law of One books that are on the planet currently, or at least I don't believe that this technique is in there. That said, the Law of One is beyond the books that are on the planet. It is the interconnection and interdependence of all dimensions of reality. So essentially, the Maharic seal comes from the Azurite Temple teachings, and they are state-of-the-art techniques that specifically create the energetic foundations of our oneness. And the practical purpose of these teachings is to truly free and empower all, to empower us, to free us from these systems. So the personal and planetary technique that we're going to do today, the Maharic seal, is really a keystone tool of such importance that it's made readily available to humanity to use. And it has been used in the ancient temples as tools and techniques for our ascension. Because essentially what the Maharic seal does is it directly activates the specific mathematical geometrics that create a connection to the 12th dimension, what is called the Mahara current. So because we have been locked into this 11-strand DNA template, and humanity has been even more into that 2-strand DNA template, until we actually do the Maharic seal and activate our Maharic current, people can actually only really develop their 11th seal unless they still have the original angelic code within them. So this allows us to open up the Maharic current, the 12th dimension, and it allows for us to connect to the 12th dimensional currents. Once we connect to those 12th dimensional currents, we begin the process of activating our 8th through our 12th chakras, which is our personal Cathara grid. It begins to open up our crystal seals, which is otherwise known as our DNA activation. We begin to reactivate the planetary biofeed interface between our personal body and the vehicle of the Earth body that we're on right now, which allows us to do sacred work on the planet, sacred site work. It allows us to go in and actually support the Earth in activating and in clearing her templates as well. It allows for healers, if any of you are healers, to be able to transmute and transmit the 12-dimensional frequencies through your body more powerfully and longer lasting, and often it's permanent the more you do this technique that we're going to do today. It assists the indigo and the rainbow and the crystal and all of the star seeds that have come into the planetary field on rescue missions to anchor higher frequencies. Gosh, there's so many amazing benefits that it does. That said, I do want to get into the technique so I can share more of them with the group. That's the last one I will share, is that it activates the full Merkaba. So it brings that misalignment of your ascension pillar back into alignment, which is the most important thing. This is the bioregenesis that allows us to bring everything back into alignment, so that when we are doing our journeys, when we're doing our meditations, we're actually in alignment so that we can bring through the source code energy, so that our non-ordinary states of consciousness become our ordinary states of consciousness. And before we dive into the technique, one more picture of the actual Maharic seal here. So we're going to be utilizing the Merkaba. So remember the two triangles. Remember that image, because we're going to bring that image into our pineal gland. We're going to bring it down into the planetary Maharic shield. So you'll see it goes horizontally like a massive plate through the center of the earth, and that's what we're going to bring it down into. And then we'll bring it all the way back up into our soul star 14th chakra up here. So just remember this symbol, because we will need that symbol. And when we say Maharic shield of the earth, we're going to bring it all the way down here. So another word for the Merkaba is the Hierophant symbol code. So if you hear me say Hierophant symbol code, we're also talking about the Merkaba. Okay? So I invite you all to start to maybe just shake out all the information we just took in. And we're going to start to bring ourselves into a journey space. So bringing yourself into a journey space through starting to close your eyes, starting to take a couple big, deep cleansing breaths, inhaling through our nose and exhaling with a big. And just breathing in that way a few times to start to release any tension in your body. And with your eyes closed, begin to imagine a two-dimensional Merkaba star in the color pale silver. And imagine it in your forehead. That's inside your forehead. And you can imagine that it can be helpful to imagine it on a black background inside your forehead. So this image is currently representing a scalar wave pattern called the Hierophant. And the color pale silver is the frequency spectra of the 11th and 12th dimensions. And when we combine the symbol and the color frequencies, it creates the key code to unlock the 12th dimensional Maharic shield in the personal and planetary scalar grids. So imagining and breathing into that Merkaba star in pale silver in the center of your forehead. Taking a deep inhalation, visualize that Hierophant symbol at the center of the brain in the pineal gland. And on your exhale, begin to move that symbol down your central vertical column, down your spine, then out between your legs and straight down into the earth's core. Inhale in the earth's core and imagine that you can see at the earth's core a huge disc-shaped crystalline platform of pale silver light that extends outward on that horizontal plane like a plate. Maintaining your breath, visualize that Hierophant, the Merkaba star, suspended at the center of that disc. This image now represents the planetary Maharic shield that allows for the 10th, 11th, and 12th frequencies of the earth to be accessed. Taking a deep breath in and holding that breath to build the charge. On your exhale, imagine that you expand the earth's Maharic shield out and it begins to spin. On your next inhale breath, imagine that you are inhaling, breathing that pale silver light from the earth's spinning Maharic shield, breathing it into your Hierophant that's positioned at the center of that plate. And on your exhale, then push that pale silver light through the entire Hierophant, filling it up, making your Hierophant glow and pulsate with this pale silver light. Taking a deep breath in, imagining that glowing pale silver Hierophant begins to flash a crimson red and then returns to pale silver. And on your next inhale breath, Draw the Hierophant vertically up from the Earth's core to a position about 12 feet below your feet. The position where your personal dormant Maharic Shield scalar wave grid lays dormant. And as you inhale that Hierophant up from the Earth's core, imagine that it trails a thick cord of pale silver light behind it. One end of that silver cord remains attached to the Earth's core, and the other is attached to the Hierophant, that Merkaba star of pale silver light. And that cord is representing the Earth's feed line, through which you draw energy up from the Earth's Maharic Shield into your own personal Maharic Shield. Taking a deep breath in as you draw it up, and then on your exhale, with your attention on that Hierophant, now positioned 12 feet below your feet, exhale and create a powerful breath that bursts that pale silver light outwards on a horizontal plane from the Hierophant, creating a disc-shaped crystalline platform of pale silver light about 4 inches in diameter that extends out on a horizontal plane 12 feet below your feet. So you're creating that silver plate now 12 feet below your feet. This image represents your personal Maharic Shield. On your next inhale, draw more pale silver light up through the cord that is attached to the Earth's core. Draw more pale silver light up that cord into the Hierophant at the center of your personal Maharic Shield. And on your exhale, use that breath to push that pale silver light from the Hierophant out into your Maharic Shield. And as you keep doing that, pulling the energy up from the Earth's core, from the Earth's Maharic Shield up into the Hierophant, and then breathing it out into your Maharic Shield, imagine that your Maharic Shield now pulsates as it fills with this pale silver light from the Earth's core. And as you continue to breathe this energy up and expand your Maharic Shield, inhale, drawing more pale silver light up from the Earth's core into that Hierophant. And imagine the pale silver cord expands now to 4 feet in width. So that pale silver cord of energy from the Earth now expands to 4 feet in width, forming a pillar of pale silver light running from the Earth's core directly into your 4-foot diameter Maharic Shield. So you inhale, draw that energy up the cord, and it expands into that 4 feet wide pale silver light pillar. This is your ascension pillar. Exhale again, using that exhale to push pale silver light out from the Hierophant that's at the center into your Maharic Shield. And imagine that your Maharic Shield begins to take on a life of its own. And imagine that that Maharic Shield eventually starts to fold upwards with almost like a popping sensation and creates a 4-foot wide diameter pillar of pale silver light all around your body now. This is your Maharic Seal. It's a temporary scalar wave pillar of 10th, 12th, and 11th dimensional frequencies of light that will block out any disharmonic frequencies in your body and biofield and restore it all to its original, perfect, natural order. Inhale and imagine that that inhale breath draws the pale silver light from the pillar that encases your body. into every cell of your body. And sense that tingling feeling as the pale silver light moves through the physical body. And on your exhale, imagine that you can feel that energy of the pale silver light expand into every crevice of your body and then outward around you into your biofield, into the pillar of light that you're now standing in that goes all the way down into the Maharic shield of the earth. Just continue to breathe naturally for a few moments as you feel this pale silver light move through you while sensing the energy presence of your Maharic seal pillar around your body. The more time that you spend breathing and sensing the energies, the more of the 10th, 11th, and 12th dimensional frequencies that you're drawing into your pillar, which will increase the length of time that your Maharic seal will remain in your biofield. Just taking a few moments and just breathing in this way, breathing in this pale silver light through your biofield, through your body. And now return your attention to the Hierophant, to the Merkaba star that's still positioned 12 feet below your feet. And using your inhale breath, draw that Hierophant up through your central vertical column, so up your spine, and draw it up and out the top of your head to a point that's about 36 inches above your head, which is your 14th chakra. So breathing that Merkaba star, the Hierophant, all the way up from your Maharic shield, up through your body, out your crown chakra, to the 14th chakra, about 36 inches above your head. And on your exhale, forcefully breathe rapidly to expand your Hierophant outward into a horizontal plane at the 14th chakra. And breathe powerfully until that Hierophant suddenly just disappears. And you might feel a mild popping sensation in your crown. Breathe normally while visualizing for a moment that this brilliant 4-inch pale silver pillar of light that extends from the earth's core upward all the way up to your 14th chakra, fully encasing your body, extending far beyond your head. Breathing in that pale silver light throughout your whole being. And imagine it goes all the way up into your 14th chakra to form a star of pale blue light, far off in deep space. Your Maharic shield is now temporarily activated, and your Maharic seal pillar is temporarily manifest within your biofield. Your Maharic seal will stay in place anywhere between 20 minutes, an hour, the first time you do this technique. The more that you do this exercise, the longer that your pillar will remain. So whenever you feel ready, you can take a couple of cleansing breaths. Bringing your awareness back into your body, back into your heart. Whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes and maybe stretch out your arms. Or maybe you want to stay in this meditation for longer, that's perfect as well. If you don't have any questions, you can choose to stay in it for longer. So when the recording is up of this, utilize this technique and go and connect with this way, because every time that you do it, you're bringing your ascension pillar back into alignment, and you're beginning to reactivate and realign with your source codes. And the more and more and more that you do this, the less and less and less you will be susceptible to any type of black hole matrix, limitation, scarcity, and you'll experience more and more and more joy, because you'll be creating such a strong foundation in your template that it's like, I'm absolutely 100% committed to the divine. I'm committed to the divine source template. I'm committed to the Christic code. And it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to continuously actually work with our light body to bring it back into alignment with that, so that we, on the energetic fields, become very clear that we will no longer be compromised in any way, shape, or form, which will create less scarcity, less fear, less limitation in every area of our life, because we'll be able to bring in more and more source energy. So that is the transmission for today. Does anyone have any questions? I know we talked about a lot. I have maybe a couple minutes. I do have to make an appointment for some acupuncture. That said, I will create space if anyone has any questions now, or if questions come up as you start to integrate this information. Now feeling good. We feeling the experience of your Mahara shields. So anytime that you want to connect with a higher presence, you want to bring in source energy, this little practice is a really great way. You guide yourself through that, you create that pillar, because it allows you to connect with that 12th dimensional frequency, to bring in that information, that wisdom, that part of your monad. A lot of useful things that you can do, and I highly recommend that you, as you practice it, once you get to a certain place, you share it with others, and you don't have to go through the whole this is everything that's happening unless they want that. That said, you know, if they're open to learning this technique, it helps them to become in alignment. And the more of us that free ourselves from being able to be siphoned energetically, the more that we will be successful in our missions, which is to free humanity and all of Earth and beyond from this black hole matrix. So it is a technique to be shared, and an awareness to be offered to others once you have really worked through it a lot in your fields. Yay! Thanks for playing today, everyone who's with me live, and everyone who will watch this replay. If you have questions after watching the replay, you can type them into the comments in our membership site. You can bring them into the group page as well, wherever you feel most resonant. Always just tag me in it so I'm sure I see it, because as you know, algorithms on social media are crazy these days, and if you don't tag people, they likely don't see it. So please, please do tag me when you have questions so that I immediately get notified and can see it right away. Awesome. Well, everyone, let's close the same way we came in, with a nice deep breath into our heart space. Maybe if it's morning time, you do some stretches. If it's evening time, maybe you do some hugging, or you feel whatever feels good for you. Let's just let some hums come out of our chest, taking a deep breath in. Just letting out a big vibration. And next time, let's let out a hum. Take a deep breath in. Much love to you all. I will see you next week. We have our next live call the same time, same place. Any questions that come up in between, you know how to reach me. This replay will be up within the next 24 hours. See you all again soon. Bye.